But let's have a look at this one, because I think this one's quite important, isn't it? Structure, adding structure to the consultation. So we've figured out why we need structure. All right, okay. There's patient benefits and there's doctor benefits. What did you make of the structure of your consultation?
All of it haywire.
But I'm going to be devil's advocate and say, oh, no, hang on, you don't need structure, you got the outcome you wanted, she's taking the tablets, big deal. So why are we still looking at structure?
From my point of view, the outcome's fine, she's taken the tablets, but it was a lot of hard work. And even after the consultation's over, you feel kind of knackered.
Right.
And you're trying to do too much in too little time, flitted from one thing to another, and it doesn't feel right.
It's a bit like decorating a house, isn't it? Different rooms, where you're painting a corner of a wall in one room, then you go into the next one, then you do the next one, and at the end you're just totally exhausted with it all.
True.
All right, so I agree. I think structure would have made your life a lot less flustered, and would certainly help aid recall for the patient. So the structure of the consultation, the patient would understand what's happened and gone on. And if it's higgledy-piggledy for you, how do you think it is for them?
True.
All right, so, and again, structure is also important for the next consultation. You can see at a glance what you've done, and you can decide what to do next.
Excellent, yeah.
All right, so there are lots of benefits of the structure of a consultation. Okay, so we didn't think there was that much structure. All right, so, okay, let's figure out how you could have added structure to this consultation.
Okay. First of all, I think I started wrong. I started by saying, oh, hello, how are you? No, hello, you here to check your blood pressure, let's do that. So jumped in too soon. And then remembered, oh, wait a minute, I need to surely ask her how she is. So I asked her how she was. And then she came up with lots and lots of stuff. So that's where I think the beginning went a bit wrong.
Right, okay.
Then when she did come out with this stuff.
Yeah, I'm just going to take a few notes while you're talking. Go on.
And then when she came out with how she was, I kind of stayed where I was. So,
right.
With the blood pressure.
Yeah.
Let's check your blood pressure. And I think possibly if I'd given her some more time over there,
yeah,
then I could have, gathered the information a bit later on and probably wouldn't have skittered from one to the other. So I think probably just sitting back and allowing her to talk at the beginning would have been good.
Okay.
I think that after that, where I gathered the information and, made a decision and, gave my explanation, that was all sort of okay-ish apart from the fact where she brought in the headache.
Okay, so some of the stuff you're talking about there is a lot about the beginning part of the consultation, yeah? So if you have a look at this, agenda setting, being flexible, giving space for her to talk, is certainly a lot of this happens at the beginning of the consultation. I'm not saying you shouldn't give space later on, of course you should, but a lot of this starts off right at the beginning. Right. So that's what happens at the beginning, and I think throughout the consultation there are a couple of other things I wanted to talk about, and I made notes on them. And it's the 2 S's. Alright, the 2 S's. What do you think they are? And you do these periodically throughout the consultation.
Summarising and signposting.
And I think that's where there wasn't enough in this consultation. Alright, so let's just start from what you've already talked about, because I think what you said is really, really important. If you don't get the agenda sorted out right from the beginning, how can you have a structure? Okay, So you had already had your own agenda, which is the blood pressure, but that wasn't her agenda, so there
No.
wasn't a merged agenda.
No.
It's a bit like me and my family heading off to Birmingham, and that's what I want to do for the weekend, and all I've done is shoved them in the car and taken them there. And do you see what I'm saying? And then throughout the journey they're going to ask loads of questions. Where are we going? Why are we going there? But I've got drama school, or I've got this, or I've got piano lessons, and I've got to do this. Oh no, you can't, we haven't locked the door. You know.
True.
Okay, so it's going to get chaotic if we don't get the agenda sorted right from the beginning, and the agenda has to be a two-way thing. Alright, so you're absolutely right about this thing about giving a space, figuring out what the agenda was. You already said yourself that you went straight for the blood pressure, and clearly she had her own agenda, and maybe at the beginning, by giving her space to talk, you could have then been flexible about the agenda, possibly even starting with her agenda first.
Yeah.
Alright. And then I want to go on to this, which I think, although that didn't happen, that still could have helped you out.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's summarising? Well, no, let's talk about signposting first.
Okay. So signposting can happen when moving from one part of the consultation to the other.
Or a different subject.
Yeah.
So where would you have used it in this consultation? Sorry.
Could have said, okay, so this headache's clearly bothering you. Let's talk about this first, and then we can talk about the blood pressure later on.
Yeah. Or what about that bit where I've introduced a headache, or all these headaches, or let's just go with the consultation, how it went, alright? Alright, and at that point where she introduces a headache, I say, oh, and these headaches are really bothering me, doctor, and they're such and such, and blah, 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 blah. And you're in the middle of the blood pressure thing.
Okay, so I'd say, right then, if they're that big a problem for you, let's talk about these first. How would you like that? And she might say yes.
But you're already halfway through the consultation.
I mean, as long as, okay, I could say, tell me a bit more about these headaches, and then we can decide whether we should talk about the headaches first, or whether we can discuss them later on.
Yeah, that's quite a good way actually. Very good way. And another example, what I use, I might turn around and say, okay, tell me about the headaches just in a bit more detail, and in particular what you're worried about. Then she says this spiel, alright, and I said, okay, and then if I'm not that worried, and I might turn around and say, would you mind if we just put that on hold for a second? I'll come back to that in a minute, but let's go back to the blood pressure stuff and sort that out, and then we'll talk about this in more detail. Possibility. Your technique's absolutely fine, which is, okay, so you've mentioned the headache, so I'm just trying to, and always verbalise your thoughts, I think they can be really helpful. I'm just trying to figure out what we do now. Shall we go back to the blood pressure tablets, or shall we stay on this for a while, and then go back to the blood pressure? She might say, oh, would you mind if we talk about this in a bit more detail? Yeah, come on, let's talk about this in more detail. And when you've discussed your bit, then you would signpost again.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we move back now to the blood pressure and the statin thing that we were talking about?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so we see that signposting, has to happen at several points in the consultation. Even when you're exploring ideas, concerns and expectations, certainly concerns, you might, for example, signpost it by saying, would you mind if we now look at what some of the things that you're worried about, because clearly you watched this programme that really, really upset you and put you off the tablet. So shall we have a look at that in a bit more detail? Alright, or it might be, just that sort of stuff. Okay, so going on to summarising, how does summarising help with the structure of the consultation?
Okay, so it lets the patient know that you've listened to everything they've said so far, and also draws a conclusion to that bit of the consultation.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're absolutely right. It kind of summarises what you've just all discussed, and then you can signpost now and move on to the next chunk.
Yeah.
So you're kind of chunking it really, chunking, and chunking. So summarising is really, really important. It's not only allows you to summarise what you discussed so you can move on to the next bit, but in a consultation, sometimes discussions go all over the place. And summarising is a good way of bringing it all back together and saying, look, this is what we've done today, just to help you. Alright. And summarising also has one other big, really important benefit, which is it's an opportunity to highlight the most important bits of the consultation.
Sure.
Right, because the consultation is about lots of things. So can you see how summarising might have helped with this book, with the structure of the consultation? Where might you have added summarising?
When she talked about the headaches, could have used it over there. So these headaches have been going on for 5 years, blah, blah, blah. You've had nose, nausea, vomiting, you've had no, this. And is that right? And she would have said, yes, that's right, doctor. So I said, okay. So I've had, and maybe signpost. Okay, so I've listened to you talk about your headaches. And to be honest, I don't think it's anything serious in particular. It's not. I don't think it's a stroke or anything of that sort that you were worried about. Let's talk about, and you can say to her, I'll examine you next week in more detail, blah, blah, blah. And you can say to her, right, shall we talk about the blood pressure tablets now?
Yeah, shall we go back to the blood pressure? Yeah, absolutely. So summarising would have been good at that point to say, okay, so I've listened to your story and the thing you're worried about is this, blah, 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 blah. Don't worry, I don't think it's this, but you know what? We'll look at you next week and look at you in a bit more detail just to make sure it's not. So, shall we now go back? So these two, the two essays always go together, don't they? Quite often they go together. They can be separate, but they often, so we can summarise with that bit and then signpost to move back to where we want to go. Alright.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, summary at the end would have been helpful, but again, like signposting, summarising happens periodically throughout the consultation for the various chunks we want to do, and again it just adds more structure. Alright, it's a bit like title and conclusion. Title and conclusion, title and conclusion. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a good way of looking at it, isn't it?